Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony. I'm your host, Tony Jones, and I don't know if it's just me or not, but the air just seems more affordable out there today. My guest today is Danny Arp, our TWT lead college football expert, although if you looked at the standings, you would not find him on the top. But he's going to see what he can do about that, see if he can get him in a better position. Danny tonight is well, he's not in Jacksonville anymore. I know that, and he looks like he's on the one of the islands in Hawaii. But he also may be in LaGrange, Georgia. Our producer Jake Barton is in Noonan, Georgia. Jake, Danny, where are you tonight?
Well, as much as I would like to say that I was in Oahu, which is where that's taken at Waikiki Beach when I went and visited I'm in LaGrange, Georgia. I caught a lot of flack last week about you saying we got our lead man on the ground in Jacksonville. So everybody I sent the video to said, "You lied, man. You didn't go to the game."
Well, you had me fooled.
That's what I told him. I said, "That's the whole point, baby. It's called illusions."
Kind of like the time
What we've been living under.
CNN said mostly peaceful protests, and then the whole city in the background is on fire. You know, like one of the protests and all.
That's just the way I told them. That's just the world we live in, bro. Both sides, everybody. We do what we got to do. And as you said, I am sitting under dreamy skies in my mind in Hawaii instead of traffic in Atlanta or even LaGrange right here on Vernon Street in front of my house. You can't. It's rush hour out there.
And because of time change, Danny, it's already dark. But out there in Hawaii right now, if you were, it would still be very much daylight, about 5 hours or so time change. So that's perfect, actually.
I was talking to Blakely earlier on the ride up, and she lives on Kauai, and I was talking about how exhausted you and I are, being up all night. I was trying to explain to her, 9 elections I've been through. I turned 18 in 1988, and first election, I barely made it for registration to vote. So I voted in 1988, and I voted for Michael Dukakis.
And Lloyd Benson, who I had met before he passed away, was a gentleman from Texas.
Yeah, South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was in South Carolina, but yeah. Yeah,
well, he's from where was he from? South Carolina?
No. Lloyd Benson was from Texas, but he was a fine man. I don't talk very great often of Democrats, but Lloyd Benson was a good man. What you're citing, though, Dukakis was doomed. He was doomed anyway, but he was really doomed when he did the commercial with himself in the tank and all. Boy, that.
Yeah, and it's like the Saturday Night Live skit said, George Bush has saved tons of people, but Michael Dukakis wants to give all your money away. It didn't deter me. I voted Democrat forever, my cousin Jimmy Carter. What else can I be, But I'm definitely a dead center one, But anyway, Blakely, the point was, Blake said if we were in Hawaii, if you and I moved to Hawaii, we could stay, it would only be, if we stayed up to 4 in the morning texting like we did last night, it would only be like 11 p.m. So,
she's absolutely right.
Another good reason.
We're going to talk college football. I'm wearing Carnell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver. Had a good game against Penn State. Often not thought about in the same manner as Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka, but still very good. I got to brag on my Auburn people, though. So patriotic last night. Auburn is an extremely conservative university. Auburn is an extremely conservative city. And there was just hundreds and hundreds of students out there singing the national anthem, rolling tumors. Of course, the football team hadn't been able to roll tumors very often this year. So we take advantage of situations that we can. But it was just, and Jake may be able to find some footage on that, actually, and I would love it if he could on YouTube. But just the rolling of tumors, it's just a glorious, glorious thing. And just to hear the students singing the national anthem and have the flag draped out of, so many of them and all, really patriots. And people who voted yesterday, whether you voted Democratic or Republican, were patriots as well, exercising their right, including early voters and all that we have that right to. And I got to tell you that, I am on the far right side and you are down the middle guy. So I came to you last year because I started looking at the electoral map and I was like, Trump can't win without Georgia. And you were like, Trump ain't going to win Georgia. And I'd be like, come on now. You'd be like, no, Trump ain't going to win Georgia. You were right. Joe Biden won Georgia. So this year I came to you and I said, no, look, man, Trump's going to need Georgia again. I was actually wrong as we look back because he tore down the complete blue wall, but I was counting on him only being able to win Pennsylvania and maybe Wisconsin. I didn't think he had a shot in Michigan. I was wrong. He's won all 3. But I said, hey, he's going to need Georgia. And you said, he's going to get it this time. Danny, you know your area. You know the political climate there, and you were right again.
Yeah. And again, even my wife, she's accused, Jana accuses me that I didn't make that call in 2020. And you notice I texted you last night to back me up.
You did.
But I've been through, I don't know what it is. I love the process. I love election day, no matter what, no matter how it turns out, maybe sometimes I'm disappointed, sometimes I'm not. But I cannot go to sleep. I cannot go to sleep on election night. I've stayed up every time. And, I do study it. And 2020, I told you straight away, I knew Biden had the whole thing. Actually, I told you I thought it was going to go that way. And I definitely knew Georgia was, because I've spent a lot of time here. I mean, I go and I travel around all parts of the state with the job I do. And, you can just get the feel on the street. And that's why I can't, then this year I knew it too, right? Everybody was more worked up about the economy, what's in their pockets, what's in their money. I mean, I work in an industry where a lot of people make a pretty penny, and it's been hurting them. You feel like you make more money and you don't spend it. So not a political ad by any means. I'm just saying that's what I've heard. And that's why I told you I was 100% confident that Trump was going to win Georgia. You could take that one to the bank.
Well, really, I'm really excited about it because when I drove over to Georgia after the two Republicans, Loeffler and Walker, lost those runoffs and really gave the power in the Senate to the Democrats, I had to go over for work myself, and it was a very empty feeling when I crossed that state line. And I think about how much I love the state of Georgia. I absolutely love the state of Georgia. I love the state of Alabama. Well, in the state of Alabama, I don't have anybody to complain to. Not here locally, not here, statewide. They're all Republicans. The governor, United States senators, our congressmen. Ohio is becoming the same way. Ohio has voted. That's my third favorite state. Ohio has voted for Trump 3 times. It has a Republican governor. Sherrod Brown, liberal lunatic, is back, gone now after last night. That gives you 2 United States Republican senators. So, once again, I can feel really good about Ohio. All the Republican congressman, the Republican governor, they voted for Trump 2 times. I hadn't been able to feel that great for Georgia outside of Kemp, winning. Now, because they have embraced this whole thing and they've given Trump the electoral votes. Now I feel better about going into Georgia again.
Yeah. Well, you should never not feel good about going in Georgia. I mean, no matter who's in office or not there, Tony. But I get what you're saying. I get your point. Die hard, you definitely a right guy, and that's good. I mean, I love that about you. I'm good quality you got, and you're honest.
Well, I vote with Danny. I vote with my biblical conventions.
Right, I understand that.
Okay. That's the thing. I vote with the party or the person that's running, who's closely, wants to align themselves with Jerusalem. I read with Israel. I read my Bible. I know how important that relationship is. And then, being conservative Christian, I look for the things similar. So if I get a Democrat at some point who, if I get like a Sam Nunn again, I've mentioned him on the show before, man, about enormous respect for Sam Nunn. If I had somebody like a Sam Nunn, but I just don't know if the Democrats, they seem like they're a little bit, they've lost themselves a little bit. And I think the country responded and showed them. And we don't talk political individual issues here on Talking with Tony, but there's one thing that I don't mind saying that I think is just completely crazy that we even have to discuss it. And that's men playing girls sports, especially in high school, but in college too. I won't listen to any kind of argument about it. And ESPN has gotten so liberal that they have fired everyone who took a stand as far as keeping them out of women's sports, except for Herb Street, who I think is untouchable. But the Robert Griffins and Sage Steele, Samantha Ponder, David Pollack, these are all gone. And he's the only one, Herb Street's the only one that remains. But to me, that's not sorry about my phone going off there. That's a notice that Bayern Munich just won their soccer game. So their Champions League soccer game. But to me, I don't even know why we even discuss that. I mean, men keep men out of women's sports. Keep those. I'm all for the sanctity of women's sports.
Yes, I agree. I mean, and you think back throughout the history of sports, and women were put on the back burner, right? Women's sports were not very popular. I mean, a lot of people played them. I had cousins who grew up that were a little bit older than me. My dad's side of the family had 10 kids, so I had a big expanse of cousins. They were fantastic basketball players, and I was about 10 years old when they were in high school, and they were balling out, but they didn't get the respect that the men's team got. So I can understand all the fighting that we did to push women's sports to the forefront, to make you understand that women athletes are just as good in their own, leagues as anybody. And, I look at it with my daughter, Blakely, who's a fantastic golfer, I mean, if you put Blakely up against the number one players at North Alabama, I think you had a relative, a nephew, I think, went and played at North Alabama, right? He probably, cousin. He would, probably he's going to outdrive her, right? He's going to be able to, hit his irons better, shorter irons than her, and all that. But she is going to take your money because she plays her game. She knows what she's doing. It's just not you don't want to have men playing women's sports it's a very competitive thing anyway. And all athletes are competitive. And then to go in when somebody has a definitive advantage is just, it just doesn't sit right with me either, And I do understand, me, again, this is my part about being a citizen, the compassion of different people, different viewpoints and all that. But I think that is one you sort of got to draw a line on and just say, it's just not right to have them mixing.
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, just keep biological males in the male sports.
Yeah.
Let's pick some football. Danny is 51-57, but coming off a good week. We want to point that out. 4-6 with his 5 stars. Let's open up the Gators, who gave Georgia a football game, gave them a contest with some help of some interceptions from Carson Beck. Boy, they're going to Texas, and the odds makers don't think too much of Florida's chances because Texas is favored by 21.5.
Yeah, I thought that line was a little big. I mean, Florida's defense played pretty well. Now, I will say that I'm baffled by Carson Beck's inability to pick up a linebacker dropping back, in coverage. But he seems to throw it right to him. But that did give Florida some advantage. And once we started opening it up a little bit, we did pull out ahead. So if you think about it, I guess you could say Texas, if they just played a good, clean game, would win by that much. But I think Florida's going to have something to prove when they go out there.
So you like Florida plus 21?
Florida plus 21.5. Yep. It's a lot of points.
There's a lot of points. Next game, Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, just up the road from you, will be at home against Miami of Florida. And Miami of Florida looking good in the ACC, looking like they're going to advance to the ACC championship game. Will Georgia Tech be any kind of obstacle? Miami of Florida is favored by 11.
Yeah, I think so. I think Tech's played pretty good at home. I think they're going to have a good home crowd, get the home field advantage a little to at least keep it close. I don't think they have much of a chance to win the game, but I do think they can keep it close. You got Haynes King. I think he's going to cause some problems for them with his ability to run and throw. If they can just slow down Cam Ward just a little bit, I think they'll keep it. So I'm going to take Tech and the points. So I'm 2 for 2 taking the points.
Yes, you are. That's going to change here next. Georgia is 2.5-point favorites at Ole Miss, and what most would probably say is the most important game of the weekend. It's certainly one of the 2 or 3 most important games of the weekend. And thank you so much for taking Georgia. Or Donnie Laney would be accusing you of having some kind of bias against Georgia if you didn't take Georgia. But I ought to make Donnie happy. As is usual, the norm, everybody's got Georgia this week, just like everybody had Florida. I had Georgia against Florida last week, and everybody came up, all 4 of you came up short. This time, you're all back with Georgia at Ole Miss. And I think people will look at this and go, man, they only need to win by a field goal.
Yeah. And I think if you look at it, I mean, you basically got to pick Georgia to lose, or to your point, get a field goal. And I don't know. I can't think of and I could be wrong. You got the Kentucky game, which I keep bringing it up. We're always slobber knockers with them, in a close game. But besides that, I don't know many field goal, spreads for Georgia. They haven't covered these big spreads they've had, but I do feel like they can cover that one. And I'm taking Georgia minus 2.5. I'm hoping Beck doesn't throw picks, because you don't want to give Dart the opportunity to score on you, because if you do, he will.
Yeah, I don't think you want to give Kiffin 3 extra possessions, as a play caller. And I don't think Beck will throw 3 interceptions either. You're a big believer in the Indiana Hoosiers, and they're going to face Michigan. I don't know when the last time Indiana was favored by 14 over Michigan, but I don't believe it's been in our lifetime. It's insane to think about the defending national champions, and they did play very well against Oregon. They fought the entire time, and that was a loss for me because I had Michigan in like 16, and Oregon, Dan Lannon, your boy, scored a touchdown with like 20 seconds to go to cover the number. But Michigan's going to have troubles again this weekend in Bloomington when they have to go to Indiana. Indiana favored by 14.
That broke some people's hearts scoring that last score there. But yeah, I texted my buddy. We gave him a shout out last week, Brian Wolslag. You know, he finally came out of it after they wound up winning the game. And he said, one, he enjoyed the show. He's watched that and he really enjoys your show. And then this is the game he feels the most nervous about. I think, any Indiana guy would be. The thing that gets me worried, and I'm going to give you a little quick stat, Michigan is 4-1 against the spread once we get to November in the last 5 years. And Indiana is, I think it's 1-4. So they usually start bottoming them out when you get to November. But I don't think that's going to happen this year. One, I think Michigan's down, right? So they can jumpstart their November. Michigan's played good last week, but I don't see them be able to keep up with that offense. And then Indiana's defense is playing fantastic. So I'm going Indiana minus 14. Go Hoosiers.
Okay. Next game will be my first pick. And I got to tell you, Danny, it's Colorado favored by 3.5 at Texas Tech. And I'm on the side with the rest of the panel, and you're the only one that's on Colorado minus 3.5. And the more I think about it, you could be very well on the right side. But tell me about your thinking as I open up my selections with Texas Tech plus 3.5, joining Kevin, Stormy, and John. You've got Colorado on the road minus 3.5.
I really do. I think that I think Colorado is legitimately one. They got their bowl right, but they legitimately have a chance to do something here. You know, they're still not 100% out of this thing, and they keep winning. They got something to play for, is what I'm saying. And I feel like that Deion has done well. I know there's been a lot of, angst, criticism, whatever you want to call it, of him and the way he's handled some of the situations out there. But I think he's got them going in the right direction. I think Shador has all the weapons to light it up, and I think he does. I think it's Colorado minus 3.5, probably Colorado by a touchdown.
Okay. This is another huge game this weekend, and people can argue this is the most significant game in the SEC and in the country. Alabama favored by 3 at LSU, and I think they could say that because I believe Georgia can afford a loss against Ole Miss and still be in good shape for the college football playoff. Perhaps not as good shape as the SEC championship game. Still more football left to be played. For these two teams, though, they both need a big win. Bama needs a big win, and so does LSU. This is not easy to go into Tiger Stadium, but if any team has had success in the history of playing at Tiger Stadium, it's Alabama. Does Alabama go in there favored by 3 and get it done?
No, I don't think they can do it. I think that they're going to go in there. I mean, this is going to be a wild environment. I don't know. I mean, this is DeBoer's first trip in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the coach who had all that success you were just talking about over there also coached there and had great success there as well, and Nick Saban. I do think that Kelly's got his team going in the right direction. I did enjoy his press conference. I don't know if you saw it. He said he didn't know how much access he was going to give Nick Saban. Pretty tough calling out the GOAT there. But I don't think they can go in there and I don't think they can win it. And with it only being 3, I think a touchdown goes either way, but I'm going to lean on the side that LSU gets a late touchdown and wins this game. And it's going to set them up. One is probably the Georgia side of me, too, that wants Bama to lose the game because I really don't want to see them on that playoff bracket. I mean, I just got to be honest with you. As a Georgia fan, I don't want them anywhere near us playing them again this year.
Well, you beat them in Indianapolis when you had to, so that's something. BYU is favored by 4 at Utah, and it took me a while to become BYU believer because I had them against Oklahoma State, and I was fortunate, and I had Oklahoma State against BYU, and I was fortunate to beat BYU's point spread goes. And then I tried to take Central Florida against them, and BYU beat them pretty handsomely in Orlando. Central Florida made a fourth quarter comeback, but still, it was well short. So this is huge rivalry out there. Okay, this is big time. But I'm going to go with BYU. They play so hard. They play so disciplined. They're not just a running team. They're not just a passing team. They can do both. They physical. Uh, I'm going to take them. Plus, Utah just doesn't seem to get on the right chemistry. Although that can all change in this rivalry game. Utah can win this game by 3 touchdowns, but they're going to have to beat me. I'm going with Brigham Young -4. Do you agree with me?
I do agree with you. I was texting with my daughter's fiance, John, last night. As a matter of fact, he's an Oregon guy, so he's riding high right now. But he said if he was going to pick, he'd pick Utah. And then he said that's more of a dream, though, a wish, And I said, yeah, I'm going with BYU. But you never can count out Whittingham, right? And then Cam Rising's not going to be playing in it, if I'm correct. I mean,
he's having a hard time getting back on the field.
They're listing him as not getting in, and that's really the one wild card I think they had to keep this close.
And even if he does get back, I don't believe he's 100%. He's tried to come back a couple of times, and he hasn't been effective. He hasn't been himself.
He's the king of missing the big games. I'll tell you that. But no, I don't think he'll get out there. I don't think they may keep it close for a while. I know it is a big time rivalry. Going to be a lot of heat, a lot of hitting to start with. But I think BYU pulls away. So good.
You and I. All right. So we are on the same page there, but we are different on this next one. My 5-star is the Washington. I still call them the Washington Redskins versus the Washington Commanders. Jake's this is my 5-star, Washington -2.5. Your challenge is to find the Redskin helmet versus that W helmet. Now, if that is a good-looking helmet, and a lot of people still wear their Redskins paraphernalia to those games, just like they do with the Cleveland Indians at the Cleveland games. I like Washington -2.5 at home against Pittsburgh, but you're on the opposite side. You like the Steelers.
Yeah. You're asking for him to find the helmet for the Steelers or for the...
No, for the Redskins, the Washington Redskins. We still, I'm talking with Tony, we still call them the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, the Redskins. Okay, I got you on that. Yeah, no, I'm on the side of the Steelers. I think, they're coming off arguably a pretty good game, I think. And I know Washington's been hot. I did make them my 5-star pick one time, and it cost me. So I'm going to go with the Steelers, and I'm going to take the points, 2.5.
All right. I've mentioned this to you before, Danny, but, the Redskins and the Cowboys were the biggest rivalry in the NFL. And Commanders and Cowboys, that just doesn't do it anymore.
No. It really doesn't. I mean, again, you got to go with it, man. You keep trying to walk me into these things that say, I got it, whatever. If people want to call them where they are, you have the right to call them what you want to call them, on your own show. And
hey, you think Chris Wilkie is happy tonight?
Man, he's probably in tears still, man.
I almost went over to my neighbor's house, and we were going to douse ourselves with champagne and jump in his pool, which was freezing cold once it became official. It's like 4:30 a.m. Well, on one station on Fox News and Newsmax, it came official about 3 hours before. On every other channel, they didn't want to accept it, so they put it off and they put it off. All right, so it's that time of the program where we pick the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons favored by 3.5 at the Saints. I want you to believe in the Falcons, and I don't think you do.
Oh, I mean, you don't think I do? I mean, I've picked against them every time. That's the reason I'm 7 games below 500. Go get your show out, and 6 of them are the Falcons. And the one time I picked on them, I even lost that. I think they got beat by 25 points. I can't do the Falcons, man. I would give anything if they wasn't even on the thing, but I know you're on the Falcons this year. I get it. It's padding your stats or whatever, But I am not going with the Falcons. I'm tired. Everywhere in Atlanta is just Falcons jerseys and hats, the billboards. I mean, it's just out of control. So I am going to I'm going to say who dat, man. I'm going with the Saints.
All right. That works. You got the Saints plus 3.5. I've got the New York Jets.
So everybody else got the Falcons. You'll tell us in a minute, I guess. All right, you'll tell us.
Yes, everybody else has the Falcons, so you probably win. If history
is what I need. That's what I need.
I've got the New York Jets plus 1 at the Cardinals, and once again, you and I are opposite. You've got the Cardinals.
So you really think the Jets can do it, huh? Well,
I think they have to win at being 3-6 or whatever they are. They absolutely have to get victories. They can't afford losses. That was the process there. And I'll pull against Florida Harrison for a game.
I think the Cardinals are coming off 3 in a row, right?
Yeah, they including a pretty 29-9, pretty impressive victory over Washington.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're going to keep riding at it. I mean, they got the home field advantage this time. Aaron Rodgers, everybody'd like to see him do well, but I'm taking the Cardinals -1, man. I'm way on the opposite side of you. Well, no, we got one together. All right.
Well, and we're going to have one more opposite side because I didn't turn this in to Jake when I turned in the picks, but sitting here thinking about it, I'm going to take the Texans +3.5 at home against the Detroit Lions. I mean, Detroit's playing at such a high level every week. They can't just continue doing that every single game. So I'll catch those 3.5 points at home and go with Houston Texans as my final football pick of the week. You are opposite. You've got the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I know you like Stroud, right? I mean, he's a great quarterback, but here's a little stat for you. The Lions are pressuring the QB at 41% on dropback. Stroud, when he's pressured at 31% or better, he's like 68% completion ratio. He gets up to around the 40-50% mark. He drops down to about 51% completion ratio. And I don't see the Lions letting up. They've been putting heat on everybody all year. I think they're going to do the same thing to him. And as much as I like him, I think he's a great quarterback. I mean, I don't think he can withstand it the whole game. And this isn't much of it, 3.5. It's going to be a touchdown game one way or the other. And I think it's going to be for the Lions winning by a touchdown.
Well, that's a dynamite drop in as far as the stat goes. Really helps out the show when you do things like that. But I would like to point out that Detroit's best player, Aiden Hutchinson, is defensive player, is gone for the season. The pass rusher and stuff, they've been without him for a couple of weeks. So I think that might hurt some of those pressures that you might have been counting on there. Or, they can still look, they've still got capable people. You don't have the record Detroit has without that. But I think without Hutchinson, it makes me feel a little bit better about Stroud.
I agree. It's a great point and point well made. But I think their defensive backs are very well at cover. They're covering great. I'm not sure where they're at, but they're ranked. I think they're first in interceptions, if not right up there. It's going to be an interesting game, man. That'll probably be the one. I'll watch a lot of pro games. I'll watch a lot of highlights of it, but I may watch that.
I'm interested to see if the former Auburn Tiger, Carlton Davis, the defensive backs, is sensational. That was with Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl with Brady. He's with Detroit now. If he's back healthy after getting shaken up last week. Let's run down Danny's picks for you. 51 and 57, 4 and 6. And the 5 stars, he's got the Gators +21.5. So he opens up with the Florida Gators. Georgia Tech, Yellow Jackets +11. His Georgia Bulldogs are -2.5 as they go to Oxford. The Indiana Hoosiers -14. Colorado -3.5 at Texas Tech. His 5-star, LSU +3 in a huge game at Tiger Stadium against Alabama. He goes with Brigham Young -4 at Utah. In the NFL, he goes with the Pittsburgh Steelers +2.5. He likes the New Orleans Saints +3.5 against the Falcons. He has the home team, the Arizona Cardinals -1 against the Jets, looking to stay hot, by the way. And then the Arizona Cardinals, that is. And then the Detroit Lions -3.5 at Texans. The Lions, the favorite in the NFC right now to make the Super Bowl, which is interesting in Vegas. I am 25 and 22. I am 9-3 in soccer after winning 1 and tying 1 last week. I'll go with Everton. First time I've taken them this year, +0.5 goal at West Ham. Everton has all kind of trouble scoring, so maybe they can get out of that like a 1-1 tie. And then I'll go with Bayern Munich, my favorite team, -1.5 at St. Pauli. It looks like St. Pauli, STPAULI, but it's like St. Andrews. It's not St. Andrews, it's St. Andrews there for the golf. The catch there for Bayern Munich is, though, they've got to win by 2 goals or more, something they didn't do today in the Champions League game against the Portugal team, Benfica. They beat them 1-0. And you look at my football picks, I'm 25 and 22, 5 and 5 with the 5 stars. I go with Texas Tech +3.5, though I really think I'm on the wrong end of that one now. Brigham Young -4 at Utah. I like the NFL pick, the 5 stars, Washington -2.5. I've got the New York Jets +1, and I'm adding Jake, the Houston Texans plus 3.5 against the Detroit Lions. Kevin, 54 and 54, 4-6 with his 5 stars. Texas minus 21.5. He goes opposite of Danny with Miami of Florida minus 11. He joins Danny with Georgia minus 2.5 and Indiana minus 14. He likes Texas Tech, the home team, against Colorado plus 3.5. He also agrees with Danny with LSU plus 3 and Brigham Young minus 4. In the NFL, he joins me with Washington minus 2.5. He joins everyone else with the Atlanta Falcons minus 3.5 except Danny. His 5 stars, the Arizona Cardinals minus 1, and he likes the Detroit Lions minus 3.5. Stormy is our first place person from the panel. 57 and 51. He has a 1-game lead over John. Stormy is 3-7 and 5 stars. He's got Texas minus 21.5. His 5 star, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets plus 11. He loves those Yellow Jackets. He's got the Georgia Bulldogs minus 2.5, though he says, I hope they lose in the notes that he sends. And then he's got Michigan plus 14 at Indiana. Texas Tech plus 3.5 against Colorado. And then he agrees with Danny with LSU plus 3 and Brigham Young minus 4. Into the NFL, he's with me with Washington minus 2.5. He goes with the home team, the Atlanta Falcons minus 3.5. And when I say home team, to our region, not they are playing in New Orleans. He agrees with me, New York Jets plus 1, and he's got the Detroit Lions minus 3.5. John is 56 and 52, 3-7 and 5 stars. He opens his selections with Texas minus 21.5. He's got Miami of Florida minus 11. The University of Georgia Masters graduate has his alma mater minus 2.5. He's got the Indiana Hoosiers minus 14. Texas Tech plus 3.5. He goes with Alabama minus 3, the only one of the 4 members of the panel to go with Alabama. And he's got Utah plus 4, the only person amongst all 5 of us that picked that, since I picked Brigham Young also. So he's got the Utah Utes plus 4. In the NFL, he goes with the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 2.5, the Atlanta Falcons minus 3.5, the Arizona Cardinals minus 1, and he saves his 5 star for last. It's the Detroit Lions minus 3.5. So there's a rundown of everybody's picks. I know Jana will be watching the show. Did we do a better job of staying? Is she saying we're too far from the camera, or we're too?
Yeah, we got too close. This last one, which I don't, again, as many great shows as we've done, I think the last show was great. Certainly content wise, one of the best. But we maybe didn't present ourselves as well as we could have, both you and I. But it's the one show everybody, my whole family, almost everybody wanted to watch. And she's like, but I told her just be ready. We're gonna get some good graphics. We're gonna have this helmet this time. It's gonna be a big time. But yeah, she'll probably watch it.
Did you see the show with Daniel Cummins, our film guy? Jake found footage from each movie that
I saw you post it. I got to go look at it. I got to check that one out. I hadn't seen it yet.
So he probably hates it, but he never complains about it. It's added work to put up the the logos and the spreads and the lines and the teams.
It looks good though.
And our stand-ins, but he does a great job at it. And sometimes I'll just throw him something like, all right, Jake, find this on YouTube, the 82 Cotton Bowl for me. Find it for me.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right. There's no Cotton Bowl for him to find today, so he's probably happy about that he doesn't need to search the Dallas, Texas archives.
Well, I'll tell you 2 things. One, my takeaways from all the panel's picks. One, Stormy is having a good year. Okay, I'll give him that. Just like his Georgia Tech Jackets having a better year, so I'll give him a little credit there. But I'll say one thing: if it turns out that I continue on this downward spiral with the Falcons, then the whole city of Atlanta owes me for sticking with picking them to lose and double jinxing them into winning this whole time, because it's just unbelievable. They got Kirk Cousins back there playing. The defense is great. I mean, they're scoring. It's just insane, man. The second thing I wanted to ask you was, what did you think, real quickly? I know we don't have a lot of time, but it's a little surprising with Ohio State jumping up there number 2 in the first little playoff bracket that came out.
Yeah, I think the win at Penn State did a lot for that. Beating an undefeated team, but Ohio State's got more hurdles to go this year during the regular season. But that was a huge one, especially when they came up short, which I will contend was a high-level game that they lost at Oregon. So I think it's a good loss, if you will.
Look, I mean, that's as close as you could get to winning a game or losing a game. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's good. The only thing I don't like about it is if Bama somehow stays in, I'm going to be on their side of the bracket. But
the only thing I want to see is Ohio State and Georgia be on opposite side of the bracket. So if they were to meet, they were to meet in the championship game, not in a
That'd be it.
quarterfinal, not in a semifinal. There's so much football left to be played.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's
so we'll
crazy.
see. Danny, as always, I really appreciate you taking the time and
Yeah.
coming in and doing the show.
Enjoyed it, man. It's good. I hope I have a good weekend. And like I said, go dogs as usual for me.
You'll do well. Yeah, absolutely. Go Dogs against those Ole Miss Rebels. For Jake Barton, who's producing the show tonight, and Danny Art, both in the state of Georgia, I'm AJ Jones, also frequently referred to as Tony here in Alabama. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.